Konnichiwa. I'm here in Kyoto, Japan to prove something that's been bothering me for a while. You see, just recently I was casually playing my favorite WarioWare game, and a disturbing thought crossed my mind. Where is Wario from? Like, where was he born? So I booked a ticket to Japan, and I've come here to Nintendo headquarters in Kyoto to prove once and for all that definitively Wario is definitely from New Jersey. I had a bunch of Delta miles I had to use. Also, I wanted to be thorough because this isn't just a fun romp through a bunch of silly Wario facts. This is scientific proof. And yes, I know you might be saying,
actually, Nintendo's never confirmed where Wario's from, so literally, there's no answer.
To which I say, there is an answer, and I'm going to prove it methodically with science. Also, now if we're going to do this right, let's lay some ground rules. But before we talk about this absolute nightmare of a theory that I've built, let's talk about my research practices, why I'm driving to the airport, and about our sponsor, NordVPN. You see, while I was in Japan to film the intro to this video, the Mario movie came out and I missed it. So when I sat down to watch it on Amazon, I learned that it's not available to stream there in my country. But it is in other countries. So to make sure that my research was as thorough as possible, I went to Canada to watch the Mario movie. And I was finally able to watch the Mario movie on a service I already had. And then I realized that Wario isn't in the movie at all. And I probably didn't need to go to Canada if I had a VPN. Also, it's really cold there. And that's because with NordVPN, I can just convince the internet that I'm in Canada and get that sweet, sweet Canadian content. Not to mention, I probably could have safely surfed through a whole slew of questionable Wario search terms without worrying that my ISP is judging me. Not that that happened. And if you want to make your own questionable Wario searches and avoid places like Canada, you can head over to nordvpn.com/nobitrate, where you can get a NordVPN 2-year plan plus 4 months free, all with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. There's stuff that I didn't even know that they offered, like MeshNet, which allows you to share files, play LAN games, or just simply access other devices directly, which is legitimately useful when I want to play multiplayer games with my friends that no longer have supported online services, because that's the world we live in, and because of my weird taste in RTS games from 2004 is actually really useful. So go to nordvpn.com/nobitrate and tell them Alex sent you. And more importantly, get your 2 years plus 4 free months, because that's how they know that Alex sent you, and that helped me out a lot. But never mind that, let's get back to my much too expensive and much too long descent into madness. Now, everything I'm about to say is fact, with very little speculation. Because it's exactly that, speculation, which could turn this video from an anthropological, scientific deep dive of a very important character into something much more insane. Or, even worse, something that solely exists to waste 20 minutes of your life so that I can sell you cheap earbuds made by Ray J. Not that I won't do that. This is a scientific process of elimination, focusing on and then isolating the answer, starting with this one's actually pretty easy, and not for the reason you might think. Sure, he's relatively human-looking, despite having the silhouette of a butt plug and no visible genitals. The guy is a person. But calling his original home Earth, that is 100% speculation. I'm technically Italian, but I'm as from Italy as Blue Powerade is from natural flavors. It's just blue and water, and you can't convince me otherwise. Let's head to the books. The year is 1989, and TVs, for better or worse, look like this, and TV looks like this. Jesus! Sorry about that. Much better.
All the kids are gonna tease me.
That always happens. But more importantly, on Saturday mornings, TV looked like this.
With the Mario Brothers and plumbing's a game. We're not like the others who get all the fame. If your sink is in trouble, you can call us on the double. We're faster than the others, you'll be hooked on the brothers.
One of Nintendo's first and potentially best forays into Hollywood. It gave the kids something to do when they weren't playing their NES, and gave the actors something to do that allowed them to keep their teeth. Now, on the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, Mario and Luigi are from Brooklyn, where they were born and travel to the Mushroom Kingdom regularly via warp pipes. That proves that Mario and friends are from Earth, which sounds good, but this show canonically had Mario switch places with Cher's dog. So, not the most reliable source. No, a better source would be a game. The game in question is all about history. A 1993 edutainment game titled Mario's Time Machine. In it, Mario's talking to one of Genghis Khan's descendants for some reason and casually drops, "My name's Mario, I'm from Brooklyn." Bang, boom, licensed by Nintendo, so it's real. Kinda. But what does this have to do with Wario? Well, I had the same question, so after some light reading, I discovered that in Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins, which is where Wario was introduced, and had some choice sprite designs. Page 3 of the manual, titled Backstory, claims that Mario and Wario have had a rivalry ever since they were little tiny boys, which yes, you may see Wario as a baby, here it is. Wow! It's like Baby Mario if Mario's dad was Artie Lang. Sorry. Now, if they had a rivalry as literal babies, then they almost have to be from the same planet. And if that isn't convincing enough, I insist that Wario is human because, as we can clearly see in Mario and Sonic at the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games, posted up on his smooth snowman body are nipples. Or it's barbecue sauce, but I think it's nipples. And that is about as much evidence as someone could really want for something like this. So, what do we know so far? Well, Wario's a human mammal with nipples from Earth who knew Mario pretty much since he was a baby. So, does that mean that Wario's from Brooklyn? No! Still pretty sure he's from New Jersey. But before we get there, first, we have to prove... Now initially, I only identified 2 different ways of getting this done. 1, painstaking research of all official Nintendo games, manuals, and other literature. And 2, something even more insane than that, which would be like going to Nintendo myself and demanding that they tell me the truth about Wario. So, I booked a plane ticket to Redmond, Washington, to Nintendo's North American headquarters to ask the Nintendo bigwigs the truth about Wario's origin. Then I realized that they don't really let anyone in to anywhere except for the lobby, so I went back to my plan B, narrowing down his birthplace based on evidence from official Nintendo media in my 400 square foot office space. I mean, come on. Yes, I know that I said earlier in the video that there would be very little speculation, but this one is going to need a little teeny tiny bit of drawing conclusions because there's nothing that ever says outright that Wario is American. Or not American, for that fact. But that's all forest through the trees. I spent like 4 hours trying to find a backdoor into it with concrete Nintendo lore, but it just doesn't exist. I found one GameFAQs forum about it, but it's from 13 years ago, so it has some less than helpful responses in it. So instead of evidence, I'm going to have to get to America via an overwhelming amount of proven theories. So, and I'll start with a question. What comes to mind when you think of Wario? If I've done my job correctly, it's his hairless, supple bee cubs. But past a sweet pear, it's greed, arrogance, and a desire only to win and get ever richer. And some other stuff. I mean, even as a baby, his defining feature was having a big coin magnet that stole money from people. But actions speak louder than images. Has Wario ever done anything specifically American? Well, here's but a taste of what Wario has done canonically in his games. Starting with invading and stealing Mario's home, going to a faraway land and stealing cultural heirlooms for money, destroying a peaceful forest, stealing resources from the rainforest and then gambling them in a casino, stealing more cultural heirlooms from a native land and then spending the riches at an all-you-can-eat steakhouse, which either makes him American or the former president of America. I'm the head writer of SNL now. But you get what I'm saying. This isn't an accident. In fact, polling from the Pew Research Center found that a majority of Japanese people associate Americans specifically with being selfish, aggressive, and lazy. And when foreigners were asked what they thought of Americans as a whole country, one participant was quoted as simply saying, "Capitalism, money rules everything, overweight people, Donald Trump, elections, and shootings." And a list like that means one thing. We have another shoo-in for the SNL writers' room. And sure, these might have just been setups to 360 tomahawk dunk onto the two most hated organizations in the world. But beyond that, I know he's American because the Wario car is based on the 1958 Cadillac Eldorado. He's the only character that has a car that's canonically left-hand drive, and the 2003 Wario World Manual says he's 306 pounds, heavily suggesting he's from the fattest developed nation in the world. Also, it mentioned his brain is smooth and his bladder is 1.1 gallons for some reason, which, Jesus Christ. Also, when he plays golf, he dresses like this. Nope. Like this. So, yeah, he's from America, which leaves one thing left unanswered.
Camilla, can you please shut the door?
Now, proving what state something is currently in is usually pretty easy. Me, in California. Wario, mostly liquid and gas. And you, probably stoned. But proving what state someone is from, well, that requires a much too long YouTube video. Follow me. So we know that Wario is a human from Earth, and most likely his juicy 3-buck behind is from the United States. But which state? Okay, let's start with something we do know. He knew Mario as a baby, and Mario was from Brooklyn, so he's probably from there, right? Wrong. You see, he's probably from this area, but not Brooklyn exactly. Why? Well, this is the wrong map. We should be looking at this map. Wario is probably a Republican. He cares about keeping his money, power, and influence no matter what. Forget that elephant or RuPaul. There's a new poster child for conservatism, and it's a baby with a big magnet that steals coins from people. Ipso facto, he's probably not from Brooklyn, as only 10% of Brooklynites identify or vote as Republican, and if you refuse to taint the imaginary world of Nintendo with politics, I get it. But despite how many taxes Wario does not pay, he still would never have the ability to have as many cars as he does in Brooklyn. Based on my research, he at least has an 11-foot-long Cadillac, a giant motorcycle, and a tractor. So, good luck street parking those. Also, in WarioWare's Smooth Moves, we see his single-family house, which looks like this. Notice a distinct lack of buildings, bridges, and people walking over here. But his relationship to Mario has to put him a reasonable distance away from the city, pictured here, but where exactly though? Well, for that we have to go a little bit deeper. Note to the editor to zoom into my forehead. Oh hey! Welcome. If you'd believe it, we've actually missed something the entire time. Rather, we didn't miss it. Someone just told me something in the middle of writing this, which kind of threw a wrench in the whole thing. Kind of like this.
Well, actually, did you know that Wario was supposed to be German?
Is that so? So you can see how it made things difficult. Yes, Wario was originally envisioned as having a German voice, but the guy who voiced Wario in English,
Yeah. Oh, you gonna eat that garlic?
Charles Martinet, never got the memo and just made him Italian-American because nothing's scarier than that. Oh! So where does that leave us? Well, somewhere near Brooklyn that speaks a lot of German. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no New Germany, but there is something much more Deutsch. Make that Dutch. And then make it back to Deutsch. Because the largest concentration of German descendants in America isn't a big city like Washington, D.C., or Chicago, or even New York City. It's actually the home of the Pennsylvania Dutch. More correctly put, the Pennsylvania Deutsch. Amish, Mennonites, all descendants of German and Nordic ancestors, all speak a form of German.
For example, hello, wie bist du, right?
And where they're located is literally on the same latitudinal parallel of Brooklyn. And realistically, there's only one thing between those two places. And I would call it right here if it were not for one thing. But Alex, Wario has a tractor. Where would he drive that? It's not like New Jersey's some kind of garden state. But what about all these stereotypes that I'm leaning into? Surely the state isn't known for having any famous Republicans, and surely everybody there isn't an asshole, or greedy, or overweight. But what about the cowboy hat? That must mean he's either Southern or Western or compensating for something. But get this, it turns out Wario hates cowboys, but he loves the hats, which are actually called Stetson hats, which were invented by John Stetson, who moved to the Wild West from Orange, New Jersey. That's real, I read it in a book. What about a clip from one of my favorite Wii games? WarioWare Smooth Moves. In it, Wario receives a motorcycle as a gift and goes out for a ride that shows him speeding down a street featuring a railing in front of a body of water and a distant city skyline full of skyscrapers on the other side. Something that can be found in New Jersey along the Hudson River looking towards New York City. In about 60 seconds of research, I found a road that looks exactly like that frame. There's the rail, there's the river, the skyline, and then you look down.
This is in no way a coincidence. At this point, I know this is deliberate. This is targeted, and it's a crime against everyone on this green, godforsaken earth that Nintendo has been hiding it from us for this long. And with God as my witness, I promise to let everyone on earth know the one thing I know to be true, if it weren't for one giant problem.
I don't think anybody's gonna believe me. Because sometimes it doesn't matter what the evidence is if people aren't ready to hear it. Because despite all signs pointing to a clear destination, his brashness, his directness, his geographic history, all these coincidences, his general stink, the fact that he eats raw garlic in most of his games, there is no way that I'm gonna convince some people that Wario, a second-rate fictional character dreamt up by a Japanese video game company, is from somewhere real like New Jersey. And even if I went to New Jersey, I bought another plane ticket, and I showed you physical evidence that he's from there, I don't think it will change anything. And maybe this was all kind of dumb. And maybe we'll just leave it at that. See you guys next time.